what is within your control? And to your point, that's the meaning. That's the narrative. That's where having compassion for the parts of you that are struggling in that capacity is huge.
Using substances or coping with food or any of these things that, yeah, they feel good in the moment, but they're hurting you in the long run. So what are you doing in that aftermath to really be there for yourself, to cope, to heal? Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
And it's Emilia.
Welcome to another episode of Evolve Ventures, where we are helping growth-minded humans evolve by breaking one limiting belief at a time. We hope you enjoyed the last episode, number 213, Motivation Monday. This one belief will save your relationship. For today, number 214, how to gain certainty when life feels out of control. So, kind of funny. We're recording this. I typically set up all of the podcast episodes for the month, like a month in advance, just so we can prepare, do the things that we need to do, get set up well on the back end. And it's funny we're recording this because unfortunately a couple days ago, the relationship that I was in ended, and I am living the experience of what we're going to be talking about today. So this is not just going to be us kind of telling you what to do, but very much going into what it is that we really do. I think Emilia, you and I, we really practice what we preach. And I think that's something that's really extraordinary, is that we don't just say what the science and what the data and what all of that says. We only give the information that we ourselves actually live out, that we actually do, and that we know is going to make a difference. So I think this will be a really good episode and a good dialogue into we go through stuff too. It's like you see people on social media, you hear them, you see them in, these settings, and we kind of think that they're invincible, that they're perfect and nothing happens to them. And something Emilia and I really want is for everyone to know we're real people too, who go through real things and have real things happen to us. And how do you navigate through that? How do you get through that? So that's what we're going to be diving into today, is what do you do when life feels out of control, and when you're really going through a hard time and going through the midst of pain, or in the aftermath of trauma, or just in any difficult situation.
The example that I wanted to bring in for our listeners today is to kind of share that the thing that I'm kind of going through too was interesting. And for those of you who haven't noticed at this point, Bianca and I are in a little of a different setup. We are on the Conscious Couples couch, which might just be the podcasting couch at this point, our studio.
Probably.
But very comfy. So hopefully that energy transfers to you. And for the audio quality dips, if there are any, we apologize in advance. But if you look on YouTube, you will see us. We are technically holding hands at this point, and it is going to be a blast. So we're glad that you're joining us on this Thursday episode. And what I wanted to bring into the fold of this episode was what I recently had gone through in terms of the uncertainty. So for those of you who have been following me on social media or on Facebook or anything, I this last Sunday took a hike with Alan, my partner. And on our way home, we literally saw a baby kitten crossing the road. And for anyone who knows me, that is number one. I think I honestly said in a podcast episode, B, you remember? Literally 2 podcast episodes where I was one of my dreams is to find a box of kittens on the side of the road, and this whole romanticizing of how amazing that would be. And then sure enough, literally last Sunday, I'm seeing a little kitten cross a road and cars literally just about to hit it. And I am an animal lover by default. I always have been. I spent my whole life with animals, and to see this like itty bitty tiny, and I also love mini things. So I like initially freaked out, but I'm seeing this little itty bitty cat like thing cross the road, seeing all these cars, and I'm freaking out. What do? Talk about uncertainty.
Yeah.
I was in the car with Tariel and Tucker at the time, and Alan was driving, and like the whole question that all of us go through when there's so many times of uncertainty is like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And for me at that moment, it was very intuitive, very instinctual for me, because my hero got activated. My I can save this little thing got activated. And even if it doesn't end up becoming mine, what can I do to put it in a better position where it's not at risk to get hit by a car?
Yeah.
Now, not all of us are facing times of uncertainty when they might be getting hit, like going through the prospect of getting hit by a car. But honestly, like when life gets tough and there's a ton of uncertainty, like I feel like it feels like that. You know, it's like crossing the road, trying to dodge the cars. You're trying to grip at any type of certainty that you can. So for me, we pulled over, and I went to go pick up little Miss Tilly, who now that's her name.
She's officially been adopted into the family.
Officially been adopted into the family, but I went to go grab her. She was just sitting in the bushes, and she was with another one of those, it looked like just identical twin, and the other little twin ran off, and I couldn't go grab the other little twin. But what I did grab was Tilly. And in that giant moment of uncertainty, it's like, I don't have room in this family. Like, we don't have room. Like, what do I do? How is there just a kitten crossing the road? So like, obviously that's the huge uncertainty, that one of the bigger things that has been happening in my life. But like, to be your point, like we are people. There's a ton of random things that are happening in our lives where there is so much uncertainty, and it's how we navigate those moments that obviously each one of them are going to look different, but how are we navigating them? And for me, my, if you will, stress response was go fight to help this thing get better. But when it comes to my life, and maybe uncertainty within my life, when it comes to me, is that stress response the same? And I think that that's where this dialogue could be really meaty, really interesting, because I know that you're going through obviously a beautifully challenging time. And I'm really grateful that you are being vulnerable with our listeners too, because I can't imagine what that might feel like right now.
I mean, it's definitely been rough. Like, when we're recording this just happened a couple of days ago. So I'm like right in the thick of it. And honestly, like it sucks that I'm going through it. But I think me showing up really honestly in this is going to help a lot of people, because how do I say this? Not because I want this to be a show at all, but I don't think there's enough people out there who really show what they're going through in the moment and using it to help people. Like showing them like, okay, this is really what I'm doing. This is what I'm going to suggest for all my clients to do. So I'm actually doing what I've suggested clients to do, which is understanding, to Emilia's point, number one, what are the parts that are coming up? So what are those different thoughts and voices and emotions and old conditioned belief patterns and just all of the old core conditioned things that are coming up. So like one of the biggest ones for me is this feeling of, oh my God, I'm not lovable. I'm going to be alone again. And navigating through that. And what does it mean about me that I went through this breakup? And am I going to find somebody again? And am I going to be okay? And really going through all of those dialogues and listening to the thoughts that come up and how drastic they can be. Like one of my parts is called shame, and she's just like going off about all of the horrible things about me, that like, you did this wrong and you did that wrong and you should have did this and you should have did that. And it's like the catastrophizing and the ruminating and all of these really hurtful, harmful thoughts that are completely untrue, but it's just so easy to grasp onto them because that's what's familiar.
Right.
That's what all of my past conditioning remembers. So it's really easy to grip onto what we already know. So number one, what I've been doing is really deep processing. Like, what are the thoughts that are coming up? What's happening in my body? What are the feelings that I'm having? What are the beliefs that are getting triggered? And what is the meaning that I'm giving to that? So what I've been really focusing on is, this is a breakup, but it doesn't have to be anything more drastic than that. What else can this mean? And so something that I've really been doing over the last couple of days is processing, well, what's actually really good about this? And granted, this is really hard, and I'm not expecting anyone listening to be able to do this right off the bat. I've been doing this for years, getting this practice in of trying to do this. So this is years of compounded effort. So don't expect to be able to do this right away, but that's exactly what I'm doing. What's really good about this? What was amazing about this relationship? What can I learn from this situation? How can I take this and move forward? And one of the biggest ones that came up for me was, I'm so much more deserving of love than I ever realized. And even though this didn't last, it was a period of time where I really got to feel what it felt like to be loved by someone. And like real, true love, you know? So like, that's one of the narratives that I'm processing through and trying to make a more empowering meaning of. And it makes the pain not as bad, because I'm giving it a different meaning. And you and I both know, when we see people in the midst of their pain, it's like all of the worst possible meanings and associations come out, because that's just what is so familiar to us.
Definitely.
Hey everybody, my name is Matt. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications at a radio station here in Central Massachusetts. I've been a part of the Evolve team for about a year now, and I can say it's been nothing but great. Kind of diving into myself and realizing that I need to step out of my comfort zone and build that confidence in my insecurities, but also maintaining who I am as a person. You know, this is a community that's not forcing anything upon you, that wants you to feel nothing but welcome. And it's just super genuine and super honest too, which I like. And again, just recognizing that you are your own person on your own journey, but everybody in the community is here with you. You know, we're all at different stages in life, and that's a very important thing to recognize. So Emilia, Bianca, and Derek especially have helped me get to the point where I'm able to kind of excel in my career and in my personal life.
When I had pulled Tilly off of the road at that time, she was just a little baby kitten that was scared and feral. And I was a person that was also recognizing that, not wanting to get like any bugs that she had on her, not wanting to endanger my babies that were in the car, not wanting to like impact the family like in a way, but also like feeling a sense of responsibility. And I remember honestly for me, that whole experience, that whole Sunday was just, it was so guilt-riddled for me. So talk about when uncertainty comes in our life, sometimes we make decisions. So for me, that was picking her up. And at the time I didn't know it was her, but like picking her up. And then I was so focused to the narrative part around how it's my responsibility to do everything I can to go get the other ones. And like, that's a beautiful part of me. That's the mama bear part, I call her. And there was another part that got really activated in that moment of uncertainty of what do I do? What's the best thing to do? And it really challenged a lot of my ethics too, because ethically, I want to make sure that I can save all of these little kittens, you know, because I know there's another one out there. I saw it ran away. Yeah. And it's going to get hit by a car, and it's so young that it's going to get eaten. And so like, how do I navigate through that? And I just remember feeling a ton of guilt in the uncertainty around my initial decision, because what we ended up doing was bringing her into my car. We situated Tucker and Tariel so that they kind of didn't know something was up, but they knew. But the thoughts that were coming up, the narratives that were coming up was like, you're not a good person if you don't save the other ones, you know? So like having to work through that uncertainty, to your point, was really, what does this mean? What is the meaning that we're assigning to? And I remember after the morning after, so this was Monday morning, when I had called, because at that time, Alan was like, we cannot have her, like she needs to find a home. So like, I was like, all right, definitely. Like I want to honor that boundary. I remember calling this woman who was in charge of the fostering kittens network of this area. And she was the one that gave me a ton of like release around this uncertainty part, where for me, I was uncertain that I made the right decision to bring Tilly into our home and kind of foster her until she could actually get to a home and the care and everything that she needed, right? Again, that's me, this righteous person that thinks like cats don't already have what they need out in the wild. They're amazing creatures. But she had said, she's like, thank you so much for doing what you did. There's 100% chance that that cat would have gotten hit by a car and or that it would have gotten eaten. So like, thank you for saving her. And it was like, sometimes too, and why I want to bring that into this episode was I was really fighting that guilt narrative around what I couldn't do. Right. And it was there was such a cognitive distortion that was looking just at what I couldn't do, what was outside of my control, instead of really focusing in and giving myself that credit that like, I did a good thing. I did make the right choice. And for our listeners, I think that during times of uncertainty, it is focusing in on what is in your control. So now that you have the kitten, right? Metaphorical kitten, or now that you're in that breakup or whatever it is, like what is within your control? And to your point, that's the meaning. That's the narrative. That's where having compassion for the parts of you that are struggling in that capacity is huge.
It's also the self-soothing too. So that I think is really the third component of this. So number one is really identifying what's coming up for you, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the core beliefs, the negative automatic thoughts, all of those things that are initially coming up. Number two, what's the meaning that you're giving all of these thoughts, all of these emotions, and what meaning are you assigning to this situation? Mm-hmm. And then number three, how are you self-soothing in that? So for me, what that's been looking like is really taking solitude and getting really still and quiet and really talking to those scared parts and trying to give them the reassurance that they need. Ultimately, the reassurance that I need that everything is going to be okay. And talking to Emilia. So like right after the situation happened, I called Emilia and I was like, because I know she's going to be the person that can really be there for me. So I called her, and then after that, I just spent a couple of hours literally laying on the couch, just like genuinely cradling myself, because it's like I knew I just needed to be held in that moment, and there was no one around. I had to do it for myself, and finding ways to self-soothe and not going down the spiral of, all of the negative things that we could be doing. So like searching their social media or drinking or, using substances or coping with food or any of these things that, they feel good in the moment, but they're hurting you in the long run. So what are you doing in that aftermath to really be there for yourself, to cope, to heal? For Emilia, it sounds like you really getting the reassurance from this woman allowed you to start doing that, because that guilt could start to dissipate and then you could work through that narrative on your own.
Yeah. And actually I want to clarify, there was shame underneath that. It was like, I am a bad person, and that's where shame was. Yeah. And guilt was, I did a bad thing. So like, it was like, I made a bad decision because I was a bad person. Like so it's like, whoa, wait a second, let's navigate through that. So, and B, to that, I am like genuinely so proud, and I'll continue to say this, how proud of you I am. And I want our listeners to hear this too, because it's the scariest thing. And I'm so grateful that you had called me after this, because I don't necessarily identify as someone who can be always supportive of people in their toughest times, because I am someone that is very disciplined around my work. And so that's a little bit of a pain body for me. But with this, like, when you're having and going through times of uncertainty, people who can be there to hold space for you, not to problem solve. That's one of the biggest things that I've learned about myself. I'm not super good at, but that was a really good test for us where I was like, what do you need? Shoot. No. How can I support you? Like, let me just be here. You know, like that was a beautiful space, but kind of to the part that you just mentioned when it comes to the times of uncertainty and self-soothing. So many people, I find they never end up actually giving themselves that alone time and that self-compassion and that like moment of reparenting. And I think that that's where there's so much gold for us in that. In those moments, I swear to you, that's what builds the self. That part of us that has that centered energy that can really bring us through the muck and through the mess. And so few people choose to do that. So super proud of you. Go you.
I appreciate you.
And as someone who is a huge supporter of you, that was terrifying because so many people don't do that. And it's like, you just want to go and save everyone and save you. Like I remember like for our listeners, like B called me. I'm like, I need to have her over for dinner. Like this is what my internal dialogue said. Literally a good friend would never let your friend be alone. And it's like, whoa. That needs to be paused because that's a narrative that I feel like is in the culture of our culture, like in general, like a good friend doesn't let another friend be alone. And I see it from the perspective of being able to be alone is the biggest gift that you can give someone so that they can really be there for them and then let them know that you're going to be for them. For them after.
And that's not to say that like you should never seek out the comfort of other people. Like if in all honesty, like if I had a better relationship like with my family or with other people, I probably would have went there. So that's not to say that like she shouldn't be offering these things, but for Emilia, that's not the 10 out of 10 most aligned thing. And I understand that. And I wasn't expecting that. So I just needed her there to hold that space, honestly, while I was just like sobbing and crying and just feeling what I was feeling. And that's what she did. And that's what I needed in that moment. And she was able to give that. And then I was able to self-soothe and change the meaning and understanding what was really coming up for me. So for anyone listening to this who is really going through a hard time, trust me, you're not alone. We're all going through something in our lives, and there are resources and steps to work through it and process through it and to get out of it and to not feel like this is a life-ending thing that's going to ruin your life. Like, I'm saying this to myself and I'm saying this to everyone here. Like, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Something will happen, good will come, and it comes from what we do in the face of challenges. So that is my takeaway. What is your takeaway and your episode suggestion?
I'm gonna need your phone so that I can look at mine because my computer died apparently over there. So I would say while we get that ready, my episode or my final takeaway really would be navigating through uncertainty and dealing and coping with it is such an important skill set that I know deeply. Uncertainty is 1000% a part of every single one of you who are listening, your future. And when we can make room and create space proactively to really welcome that in and accept that as a part of life and look forward to that because of all of the lessons that you can transform yourself with as you apply, I think that can be a really, really powerful tool as we develop the skill of self-confidence around times of uncertainty. So I think that if I could offer a reframe to anyone that is listening to this podcast or watching us on YouTube, it comes in those moments of uncertainty where people are, yes, really showing themselves what they're made of, but it goes beyond that. You can determine who you are as a result of this time of uncertainty. And I visualize that butterfly, that caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. I think that these are the times where we can do that. And so I think it's a huge gift to have a time of uncertainty and to really use that. So my episode suggestion for our listeners really gets into kind of navigating the dealing with the stress into the coping mechanism. And we did an episode 183. It was a Motivation Monday, simple coping skills for dealing with stress. And that was my episode suggestion for you.
And mine is going to go into what I kind of talked about a little bit today. Number 208, what are limiting beliefs and how can we stop them? When you're in the midst of uncertainty, it is really easy for your old, conditioned, negative core beliefs to really poke their head out and be really prevalent. And I'm navigating through that myself. And I really believe that that is what's best for everybody listening to this, to be able to learn what their limiting beliefs are and navigate through them. So that is my episode suggestion. Final thoughts?
I'm excited for everyone. Hopefully they navigate through times of uncertainty a little bit differently and know that we are humans too, and know that we are here to support and share whatever we've learned in our times of uncertainty to our listeners. So we make sure that we allocate 30 minutes on our calendar for every single one of you. Yes, you listeners, so that we can add value in your lives in these areas or any other areas that you've ever heard us talk about on the podcast, in Out of the Mud, our free live events, or on Fridays when we do IG Lives. If you're struggling with anything in this regard, or maybe you want to learn more about it, we literally love meeting our listeners. And that link will be in the show notes to book on our calendars. It's completely free, private. And I can guarantee that by the time you kind of click out of that meeting, you will have like a whole new, maybe not a whole new outlook on life. We'll take you through baby steps, but like in the ones that are most relevant and most impactful for you. And definitely by the end of it, you'll have 2 new friends that are awesome.
BFFs. All right, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this episode and we'll see you in the next one. Bye everyone.
Everyone.